Here's the fact of the matter with regards to race in America. There are many truths that can exist at the same time. There are many truths that can exist at the same time. This is a truth that I think the average person, in my experience, refuses to acknowledge. Why doesn't the average person acknowledge that there are many truths that can exist at the same time? You know why? Because there's something in our minds as human beings where we just need to be right in a very simple, basic way. Like, we need to be right without any further thought. We need to be right without any nuance. It's easier for us. You can be right and still acknowledge the many truths existing at the same time. It's just mentally more difficult. I've seen it from white people and black people. Both are super unimpressive with their consideration of what the problem is when it comes to race in America. White people think it's, you got the white people that believe it's purely genetic, that they think black people are just born dysfunctional. And then you have the black people that believe that it's white people's fault that black people are dysfunctional. Neither side acknowledges everything from beginning to end, which pisses me off so much because it's so mentally lazy. And again, it's from white people and black people. What I am a fan of now is mentality 2.0. I was going to be like, I want the black American 2.0, but I need the white American 2.0. I need everybody to be a 2.0. There needs to be an upgrade in our humanity. Because it's such a silly discussion. It's such a not in good faith discussion. The feature of us human beings needing this to be an either or thing. And then it's the feature of us as human beings needing a scoreboard up. And that's the problem also with all of this. No one's discussing this in the context of humanity. It's all being discussed with a race fixation, which is, it's nonsense. You know why? Let me tell you why race is nonsense. Not right now. Race historically hasn't been nonsense. The way that people have behaved, the way that people have made criminal, terroristic decisions based off of it. Race, I'm not saying that race has never mattered. But in America right now, in America, specifically America, I'm not talking about nowhere else, right now, 2024, 2025 in America, race is such bullshit. You know why it's bullshit? You can't tell me as a black person you haven't met awesome white people. You can't tell me as a white person you haven't met awesome black people. It is stupid as hell to draw conclusions about a person based off of race when there's just so many examples that race means nothing. You have to make a decision. Either race means everything or it means nothing. And then when you look at the ones that fulfill the stereotype, when you look at the white people that fulfill that negative stereotype, when you're looking at the black people that fulfill that negative stereotype, you then have to ask yourself, is it because of the color of their skin? Or is it because of an upbringing? Is it because of their specific local culture? Is it because of a belief system and a value system that has been embedded into their mind, or a lack thereof that has not been embedded into their mind? You really have to make a decision here. Because I'm so sick of this simplistic ass discussion around race. To go over it again, yes, black Americans suffered tremendously historically in this country. Tremendously. And if you can't acknowledge that that would have residual effects that reverberate into the present, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's like saying that I feel the same way as an American in regards to the countries that America historically has terrorized, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, you know, those countries after 20, 30, 40 years, they should just pick themselves up out of bootstraps and there's no reason for them to complain anymore. It depends on all the elements, but you can't deny, you have to at least admit, no matter, whatever that country that was negatively affected by the United States, whatever that country is doing, whether they're prosperous, whether they are currently prosperous or currently not, you have to acknowledge, okay, so what's happening right now in their culture, in their belief systems, in their value systems, where is their head at? And then on top of that, what was our part in contributing to their downfall? Okay, I mean, we could take a country like Japan. Let's just take a country like Japan. Let's say, there's nothing necessarily. Japan's now, they got their thing. They got the thing going. They got their movement. They got their culture. They've moved on. Japan and America are now, they're buds. It's all water under the bridge. It's all good. Putting that aside. Okay. But it doesn't. But that's not necessarily always the case. And I'm sure if you were looking, you could point to some of the ways that America has like scarred Japan for years to come. And obviously, there's context behind that. I'm not saying Japan was innocent in all this. It's complicated. Everything needs to be discussed. Is my point. It all needs to be discussed. It has to all be covered. Black Americans right now in 2024, man, there's ample opportunity. There's ample opportunity for us to have a wonderful lifestyle in this country, for us to have wonderful environmental circumstances in this country. And then what white America sees, or what a significant amount of them see, because it's just right there. It's right there. I went down this rabbit hole watching all this body cam footage. Oh my God. And it wasn't, if I was white, I'd damn near, I would become a racist. Straight up. I'd be like, what is wrong with these people? That is what I would say. Luckily, here's the reason why it's like I'm incapable of becoming some self-hating black person. You know why? I grew up so black. I grew up in like a 99% damn black community. You can't ever tell me that black people are a certain way because of genetics. I grew up around black people from the worst areas, from the worst neighborhoods, from the projects, who, because of a solid upbringing, whether it was their grandparents, their parents, the culture itself, they were even then upstanding human beings. They weren't fulfilling stereotypes when we were younger. They never were disrespectful. They cared about getting educated, and they were from terrible areas. It had nothing. They weren't trying to be hood. They weren't trying to do this bullshit. They weren't. And even now, even the mother effers that was on some like, quote unquote hood stuff, a lot of them went on to get their damn masters and all that. And that had everything to do with a solid communal spirit where I grew up. There wasn't, adults were respected when I grew up. Adults had to say so where I grew up. Kids could not just act a fool and not get smacked. Kids could not just act a fool and not experience repercussions from other adults. It wasn't this thing that we see today where it's children raising children. There was more of a community and there was more teamwork on the adult side where all the adults were collaborating in a way that pressured the younger people in a way where, although many of them slipped through the cracks, but it was a minority of them that went that route that fulfills stereotypes. Many of them went the route that just spits in its face. The vast majority of them, they are just in regards to our standard American metric of successful, they are massively successful. The thing was happening now though, that was the black community though, a predominantly black suburb. Now it doesn't exist. Well, after Katrina, it became dilapidated. It became infested with the worst among us. But that's my issue with Black America is that, and this is where white racists see. They see how Black Americans allow communal, if we want to call it a black community, which you just can't, to me, it's a joke. There's no community. But let's say we're calling it a black community. If this was in fact a community, if we do indeed care, if black people truly actually care about the well-being of other black people, there'd be much more criticism about the destruction that exists in Black America. Then somebody would say, oh, you want to talk about black, what about white? That's the wrong path to take. It's just the fact that black people, this is what a white racist says, and this is where a racist is right when they're talking about black people being only 13% of the population, and yet the amount of criminality, the percentage of criminality and maliciousness that exists in the black community, it rivals that of the white community. if we're calling it these things. It's silly. It should all be about we're all Americans. It has to go that way. It has to go the route of we're just all Americans. But if I am putting my feet into this racial discussion that occurs oftentimes, and then I step back out of it because it's all nonsense ultimately. But if we want to talk about race, what racists are right about is black people being a 13% of the population, and yet their numbers competing with white America. Our numbers, it's a ratio thing. You could look to statistics and say white people are committing the same amount of criminality. They're engaged in the same amount of criminality number wise, but ratio wise, it's completely disproportionate. If white people were also 13% of the population, then that could be something we could point to. But you can't point to any group that's 70%, 60%, whatever, and you're only 13, 15%, and then being like, and then your numbers of negativity are competing with their numbers of negativity. No, it's not equal. It's actually, it's fucking shameful. You know what racists say? Y'all know what they say? They say, offended by everything, ashamed of nothing. Y'all know they say that, right? And there's so many instances. There's too many. If you just watch body cam videos of black folks doing criminal shit in the bad areas, and then acting a plum ass fool, saying I can't breathe when they're fucking standing up, being all the way in the wrong, cops giving them every opportunity to step away, every opportunity. Here's the issue. The issue here is I've seen what Black America will do when there's this notion of injustice occurring from a non-black to a black person, a non-black American committing some kind of injustice towards a black American. I've seen my timeline light up. I've seen the collective consciousness that occurs, and all of a sudden everybody's fucking high level of mindfulness and stuff. We got to admit that at the moment in the black culture, there's no criticism of the infatuation and the romanticization of destruction, material worship, and just overall chaos. We don't have nothing to say about it. So if we don't have nothing to say about it, then I feel like therefore we are not credible witnesses unto that which is occurring. The same thing for a white racist. You're not credible as a witness unto what's true to say that a person born of a certain race is inevitably dysfunctional, inevitably malicious, inevitably criminal because of their race. That is just objectively untrue, and you are a fool. But what bothers me is then I see it's not about any equivalency. I see black foolishness much in the same way. I wish everybody cared more about being an evolved human, but if we're going to talk about race, you got to be critical. White racists, unless you're critical of other whites, you have no credibility. Black racists, if you're not critical of if your own group, you have no credibility. You can't say a race is the problem just because of their race. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's about right now, what is the belief system? Right now, what is the value system? Right now, what is the culture? That's obviously what it is. No one's brave enough and has the mental cojones to talk about this kind of thing. All right.